me how you ended up being inspired then to write your book.
Well, I kind of had to get the first book out of my system.
Mm.
And I wrote about my two disastrous marriages because I wanted to answer questions. How could an intelligent, well-educated woman end up marrying not one, but two abusive husbands? They were very different from each other. They used different tactics, that kind of thing. But still, they were abusive. So how do I explain that to myself? And anyway, I wanted to find out, and I did. And it boiled down, and it's in my first book, to the experience of the school and the teacher. Now, I don't spend very much time in the first book on that, but I do talk about how I learned to deny and shut down. So after my mother died in 2015, I knew that part of my story, the school, the early abuse, was still waiting to be explored, if you will. And I most wanted to explore how parents who knew what the teacher was doing in our school, molesting the girls, could allow their girls to go back to that school. Because my parents weren't the only ones who allowed their daughters to go back to the school after it was revealed. And of course, he kept on doing it. But I wanted to explore that. And the only family I knew intimately to be able to explore those reasons why, how could a family allow their girls to go back to that school, was my own family. And I knew the problems of my own family. So I did go into those in some detail because it is a memoir. My second book is a memoir. But I knew that my story wasn't the only story that I needed to explore because there were things I didn't know. So that's why I went about interviewing 30 people to get a much fuller picture of what had happened in that village. Because as I say, I've been affected pretty much my whole life by what happened in the village and the choice my parents made to send me back to the school. So I knew that as a memoir writer and a memoir teacher, you go to the important stories first to write about them. And I finally realized by doing the first book that this had to be explored by me, the story of the teacher and the story of my parents' decision. So, and it was very reassuring to do that exploration, the interviewing, to find out that other girls were equally affected. And some parents chose to do different things. They moved away or they took their daughter out of our school. Yeah, and kind of the surrounding culture I felt needed to be explored as well. So that's basically how it came about. And I also realized while I was writing the story of our school that it was so applicable to so many other situations, other schools, churches, scoutmasters, Olympic athletes. I mean, there are so many children who have gone through very similar stories, very similar experiences.
Yes, yes, I felt it was very much dissecting the patterns, the elements of abuse and what happens afterwards. And so helpful, universally helpful for that reason, and giving and the context you give was it was helpful for that to feel like I could see how this could happen in any community. And you gave such personal details and studied your own family with compassion. It wasn't a study so much as a compassionate telling of the story of childhood. So I think that your book is far-reaching. There's a lot to understand about patterns of abuse while caring very much for you as a child in that setting. And I appreciated the book for that reason. I kept wanting to know how she was doing, this little girl. And so that was my main reason to come back to the book. Like it only took me 3 days to read it because I kept coming back to the book. I had to know how she was doing. But then so it's not just a lot of explanation and facts, and even though you do manage to incorporate all of that, it is really the story of a girl very much abandoned and failed by so many adults, as were other kids in the village.
Yeah, facing it. Well, I was told by my mother, go back to school, but don't be alone with him in the school, which told me two things. She suspected he would attempt to molest again. Otherwise, why give me that
Yes.
thing about don't be alone?
Yes.
And you are responsible for your own safety. So that's how you isolate a child, by saying you're responsible for your own safety.
Yes.
When
Yeah.
at 8, 9 years old, you shouldn't be responsible for your own safety. The adults around you should be.
Mhm. Uh-huh.
Yeah,
And then what that young mind has to do to survive that information. I'm on my
right.
own.
Yeah. Well, I knew that that whole thing about go back to school, don't be alone with him, put the responsibility for an adult's behavior onto me. And so, of course, when I got married, if they behaved badly, it was my responsibility to help them, to fix them. And the
Yeah.
no woman should have to fix their husband. That's all
Yeah.
there is to it. It's
Yeah.
them.
And no little girl should have to monitor the behavior of a pedophile in the classroom.
No, no.
Thank you so much, Karen. I love talking to you and have learned a lot. And I really enjoy the book and
Thank you.
highly recommend it. And I know that not only are you a really great writer, but now taking advocacy very seriously.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
hope for more collaboration with you.
And it's wonderful for me to meet you, to find you, and other people involved in this whole movement to help and educate about child sexual abuse, because it takes a whole army of people to help educate people and to get the word out, and to have people see that survivors of sexual abuse have important things to say. And it's not because they're being flirty with the teacher.
Yeah.
It's because the wrong person is taking responsibility. It
Mm,
shouldn't be down to the kids.
yes. And what we're doing here and what I think we both intend to do going forward is joining forces. I think there's almost a divide and conquer that happens where the abused, part of the damage and legacy of abuse is the isolation that comes along with it.
Right.
And then uh, there's very little that a human being can get done on their own. We're meant to be
Yeah.
social and bonded and cooperating together. That's how things happen. That's how the energy keeps moving. It's just, we're just going to drain ourselves if we're sitting at home. I mean, we can sit at home.
Absolutely.
We
Yeah.
should be on
And it
Zoom.
isn't just up to each individual, it's up
Yeah.
to a whole country, a whole province, a
Yes.
whole school. Yeah, it isn't
Uh,
just down to one person.
And that is the
Shouldn't be.
medicine, because it's the opposite of what we grew up feeling was the case, that it
Yes.
was up to one person.
Yeah.
So have a beautiful day.
You
And
too. It is a
I
beautiful day here.
hope to talk to you again very soon.
Yes.
Thanks.
Thank you. Me too.
Bye.